Hello, this is Bookish Talk. This is somewhat of an unusual program. Today will be a personal announcement from Stepan, and perhaps you can start by introducing our third guest and go.
Okay, well, this is my wife, and she's sort of the person because of whom all these changes are happening and all this news are coming our way. So this is Sofya. And yeah, I'm glad to see Sofya on our podcast finally. I thought about inviting her for quite a long time because she's a very smart person and it's very interesting to talk to her. I don't think many people know about it, but she's sort of mastermind behind our Instagram account. So, well, many thanks to Sofya for that. Hi.
Hi.
So, Sonia, what is the big news?
The big news are that iBookBinding, together with us, me and Stefan, are moving to France, to Paris or somewhere close there. And that's happening because in our family, the responsibilities are shared in the following way. I do corporate job. I have a committed path of working in the big international company in marketing. And Stefan is following his dream of being a bookbinder or providing tools for bookbinding and doing the more craftsman type of stuff. And my job is assuming that we have to move in a couple of years' time, every time. So we spend in every country for 3 years, and then we move on. We were supposed to move to the US, as some of you may remember, a year ago was announced. That never happened because of the lockdown and the pandemic. And instead of moving there, we decided to skip it altogether and move to another country for my next role, which will be in France. So, and Stefan being a great guy he is, kind of following me along the way while still developing his part. And I'm super proud of him as well. So we're super, super happy to embrace this adventure and move to France.
I should also say that I'm very proud of my wife because she's doing a really great job in her company and yeah, has a lot of achievements. And this is amazing how it all works out.
Oh, you're so sweet, you two.
So before we continue, I want to make a short announcement. There will be a lot of discussing different topics in this video: Russian literature, our move, how it all works out, some technical details about iBookBinding and how the shop will work, and all other things. If you are more interested in technical things related to iBookBinding, you can check the timestamps below, and I will link all the things that are related to this topic. If you are interested in us talking about all the different stuff about Russians and I don't know about our experiences, about Sofya's work, about my work, about Pavel's impressions of the things we talk about, just listen through it. We would be very happy if you do that.
So what's the timeline? And you've from now on, from this very day, everything is starting to move real quickly, right?
It really already started to move very quickly, and even it sort of has been bumped a bit because initially we planned to move somewhere at the end of April, and now we're moving on the 1st of April, and that's not an April Fool's joke or something. And there are some things that are quite important concerning how iBookBinding will work in these upcoming weeks, because due to just amount of stuff we need to do, I will temporarily close the shop, I guess either on 23rd or 24th of March. So it will happen already in a couple of days. And I won't accept any orders until we're just a bit settled in France, and I need to receive all our printers from the moving company, and I need to understand how to set up my new workshop and all that stuff. So there will be a pause maybe of 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. I'm not sure yet, but it will definitely happen. All the orders that are already there, I will process them before we move to France. And well, I guess that's the most important thing. And but by the way, at the same time, Pavel and I, we plan to continue working on our podcast, and we will continue recording new videos. So there will be some mixed backgrounds on my side, I guess, because some of the podcasts we recorded in February and March will be published in April and May, because we have a long queue of guests aligned, and some of them will be published faster probably. So yeah.
So speaking of moving, most of the things you're taking with you from Holland to France are probably your things. So 2,400 books, 11 3D printers.
When we had the movers coming to assess how much stuff we have, and I was like, we don't have much stuff. I don't have much clothes or anything, and we don't have that much furniture, which are our own. We don't have beds or like being drawers or anything like that. But then we started to look around, and Stepan was like, this bench and this 8 3D printers and these books and this thing, and also I have in the storage and this and this. And I'm like, that's quite a lot. And then the company came back to us and said, oh, we need 2 days to pack all your stuff. And I'm like, well, when we were leaving Moscow, we literally had a couple of boxes. Like we didn't have much when we were moving at the time. They still had a lot of tools moving. And I remember they were looking at it and it's like, what is that? Like, there are so many knives, there are so many different like things. And like, he's a bookbinder. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, this is the thing. But now it's much more. And the challenge is, and Stepan kind of touched upon it, that is that we're going to move to the temporary housing, obviously. And yesterday was announced that yesterday, which is meaning Thursday, was announced
meaning 18th of March, because I guess the video will be published in a couple of days.
Yeah. So it was announced that Paris is going into another lockdown for a month, which means that our transition will be not as smooth as we hoped would be. And we're going to live in a temporary housing first, which is close to Louvre, which is fantastic. But in a lockdown, probably we're not going to be able to visit it that much. But yeah, it will take time for us to find the permanent housing, and therefore to move all of the stuff for Stefan's work. Therefore, we're kind of planning accordingly, but we're trying to make it as smooth as possible. But it's going to be a bit of a challenge. As a lot of things when you're moving countries, trust me, there's a lot of things you need to take care of. When you're trying to move from one country to another, especially when you're not European citizen, and then you need to get visas and things like this. It's a whole hustle to move around.
And speaking of visas, just today you had to go to Belgium to get your visas for the second time in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's a bit bizarre.
And the thing is that just for those who don't know, the French consulate in Netherlands is not releasing the visas. They're not doing the visa process. They're busy with other stuff. So all the people from Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg supposed to go to Brussels to get the visa there. And for us, it meant that within the lockdown, we had to go there twice, first to submit the application, and then to collect our visas and put them in the passport. And the thing is that when we submitted it, the lady, the clerk who was processing the application, she told us, oh yeah, the maximum processing time is around 15 days. And I was like, okay, great. We're going to have like maybe 10 days in average. We're going to get our passport by the end of March, and then we're going to kind of slowly moving. And then in literally 2 days, we got the mail saying, oh, your visa is granted. Please come on Monday. And it was Friday. And I was like, we cannot just jump and go to Belgium and get our passports. That required certain planning, especially considering we don't have a car. So yeah, today we went to Belgium and moved back. So we, because of COVID and all of the things, we're trying to avoid all the contacts and everything, to not spend more time than needed in the country. Therefore, it was like literally back and forth. In the morning, we woke up, got in the car, drove to Belgium, gave them the passports, waited for a couple of hours, got the passports, and went back. And now we're recording this podcast. So fun times.
Yeah, I guess for Russians or maybe for Americans or some other people who live in large countries, it's not such a big deal because it's like a 2.5 hour drive. So if you live in Moscow, it's like driving to
The
the next
other end of
major city,
Moscow.
or maybe just through Moscow, because sometimes it takes 2 or 3 hours just to drive through the Moscow traffic. So it's not a long journey, but yeah, here you have to go in a different country to to apply for visas. It's a bit strange.
So could we roll back a bit? Could you elaborate on this temporary thing? So the end point of your journey, where you're gonna live permanently, will be not far from Paris, probably Versailles.
Yeah.
Yes. But before that, and for an not unclear period of time, you'll have to live in another place. How far from Paris?
It's always the case in the moving for me that my company pays for 3 months of temporary housing. In order for you not to be forced to immediately find the permanent housing, you can look around, you can understand where do you want to live, what's going on, see the places on your tempo, and then decide. We wanted to get the permanent housing immediately before the transfer because we wanted to move from our home to another home.
Especially as you can really you can just drive to Paris from Leiden, and it's something like a 6-hour drive, so we can drive there and come back. But with all the COVID stuff, it was just unrealistic to do that.
Yeah, it was unrealistic. It was risky. It required quarantine in the Netherlands, which we didn't want to do, and there was a lot of complications. So we decided to skip the pre-transfer trip, which we were entitled to, and move directly to Paris with temporary housing for a couple of weeks in the center of Paris. So it's in the 2nd district, and it's a very fancy location. Thanks to my company for paying for that. I would not be able to pay for that myself. Therefore, we can enjoy a bit of time there, walking around and seeing the things as tourists a bit. But then the idea is that my office, my company is located in Massy, which is the close suburb to Paris, but it's outside of Paris, and therefore, in order to have enough space in our apartment and to not pay a crazy amount, which you would pay in Paris, we decided to look around closer to Versailles. And why Versailles is because, as Stefan, I'm sure, mentioned a couple of times, we live in Leiden in the Netherlands, which is the most beautiful town I've ever seen. And in this year of a pandemic, as I'm working from home and Stefan is working from home, and we have our own routine of walking around, enjoying the canals and the houses and spectacular views and the parks and everything, we understood how important it is to be surrounded by beautiful things and not just industrial places or anything boring. So when I was thinking about France, I was like, obviously you can live in Paris. That's an obvious choice, but that's quite expensive. And also it's far away from office. And there are certain things which are not great about that. I was like, but we can live in such a same level of cute town as Leiden. It's not going to be as Poland type of cute, but it's going to be France type of cute. And I was like, which town feels okayish? And we were looking through, and I was like, oh, Versailles, that seems royal enough for us. We probably should end up there. Maybe we're not going to be exactly in Versailles. We're going to look around and see what type of things will stick to us in a way. It will feel right. But funny enough, even probably know better than anybody else, we lived in Moscow in Russia, which is a huge city, right? And you have everything there at any point of time in the day, in the night, and at all times you have so many things to do. So when we were moving to the Netherlands, everybody was telling me you have to live in Amsterdam. You have to live where the things are. Amsterdam is the place to be. You're young, you need to be in the capital. What they didn't understand, though, is that Amsterdam, even though it's the biggest city in the Netherlands, it's still 20 times smaller than Moscow. Therefore, I was like, it's still not going to be on par of my experience in Moscow. So we decided to live in a cute small town, university town per se, and we never regretted this decision. So with France, we're trying to also find a solution which would be more beautiful, more calm, and with the pandemic specifically in a year, I realized we don't really need things to do on a daily basis just because we're kind of self-contained people. But also if we want to do things, we can go to Paris at any time. And I'm sure Stefan will talk about the book fairs and the arts and crafts and the fairs and all of the things, amazing things. Especially he was so sad yesterday because of lockdown news that he is not going to be able to visit antique stores. And I was like, only you could be upset about antique stores being closed for another month. I'm like, I'm worried about my manicure and stuff like this, and he's worried about books and antique stores. So yeah.
Yeah, another concern of mine, besides prices of rental apartments and all that stuff, was that I plan to have a workshop at some point in the, I hope, nearest future. And if we will live outside of Paris, it may be easier for me to find some semi-industrial location within driving distance where I can set up my shop, and that would be, I guess, cheaper than something in Paris. So,
well, in Paris, you'll be lucky to afford a place where you can turn your living room into your workshop, let alone having an actual workshop.
well, we're lucky in a way because Netherlands is not the cheapest place in Europe. So we sort of already have our expectations adjusted accordingly. So I didn't have a workshop, a separate workshop here in the Netherlands, and one of the reasons was the prices. And well, I'm quite happy to have a workshop here at home, but now, as you said, as you and Sofia said, I have something like 11 printers, 3 of which are not working at the moment. So both of you were right. But all this machinery has to have its own separate space that is separated from, living people.
Yeah, and when we started living here, we were lucky enough to rent very spacious apartment with very big living room with huge ceilings and all of that. And as we decided not to live in Amsterdam, it was also cheaper than what we would afford in Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, we probably for the same money would afford barely 2-bedroom apartment, probably 1 bedroom with a small living room. So initially I was like, that's so great. We have so much space. But some like pragmatical part of me was like, it's not rational not to use this space. Like there's so much just air there. And then
well, I use it all.
Yeah, hold my beer. And then he put the bed, like he literally surrounded the space by his stuff. And it was a very slow process. So I didn't even feel it that much. Like he started with one bench and then another bench and then printer here, printer there, the drawer, then the tools, the things. And then we were just surrounded by it. And now that like I'm lucky enough not to react to white noise that much. My brain just ignores it. And therefore, when I hear the printers, sometimes Stefan is like doing something with the printer. It's like, look, listen, do you hear how quiet it is? And I was like, I didn't care either way. Like for me, it was not loud before, so I don't care. But when they all are off, sometimes we have like a Shabbat or something when the printers are resting. I'm like, oh, that's actually really nice not to have the noise and just be in our living room without this stuff. So that's definitely a goal, to have a separate space. We initially thought about renting a house with the warm basement or something like this to completely separate the space between our living space and the working space. I'm not sure it's the thing in France that we will be able to easily find, but we for sure will create a separate space.
It definitely may be more reasonable to rent a separate workshop.
Yeah. So we shall see.
So you're moving to a temporary place. You're taking your printers there. You're setting up. No, they're kept somewhere in storage, and then they'll arrive at your permanent place.
Movers of my company, thankfully, they're allowing us 90 days to figure out where do we want to put stuff. So usually what happens is like you have temporary housing for 90 days and the movers hold your stuff for 90 days as well. And therefore, once you have a permanent housing and you move in, you tell the movers, please bring the boxes. And then you spend 6 months trying to unpack them. I remember when we moved to the Netherlands, first of all, I immediately jumped into work, and we arrived the 10th of February in 2018. And since day one, I was like, work, work, work. And I didn't have any time to figure out anything. And in the Netherlands, you cannot watch properties and like to go through apartments when you want to lease. without on the weekends. You only can do it on the work days. And I didn't have any space to do it on a work day because we had like big plan coming and things which needed to be taken care of. And literally once I was done with the plan, I was like, okay, I have 1 week to find place to live because it's already in the end of 3 months. I was like, we were so desperate that on the day when we finally went apartment shopping, I was like, if we don't find today, we're pretty much homeless. Like we don't have a place to live. So thankfully, we looked through like 8 apartments and we found the one, and it was available, and they allowed us to move in quite quickly. So it was all good, but it was risky. Like it was on the borderline level. So when we are moving now, I'm like, I don't want that. Like first of all, living in temporary housing, it looks fancy. They always use it. The like interiors and everything is almost like in a luxury hotel. So you feel like everything super fancy and you're like very important person. But then when you try to live there, you understand that none of the things working as they should. Like they look cool, but they're not livable at all. The ergonomics of the things are horrible. They're like, people don't think about functionality of the space. It just looks cool. And therefore, after 3 months in the when we lived in Amsterdam in the temporary housing, I was like, I'm so done with this flat. Like we need to find some place which is livable. But the thing is that when we moved, my job at the time, and it's crazy to think about it because it's very pre-COVID times. My job was global role, and I was supposed to travel a lot. So in 1 month, I've been to Mexico, to Spain, to France, and US within the month. And I didn't have time to be at home to like settle in or figure anything. So we literally moved to the permanent housing. My fantastic husband was trying to kind of settle in and do some stuff, but there are certain unpacking which I needed to do as well. And I think it took us literally 4 months to finally unpack all of the boxes and make sure that everything is where it should be. And at some point I was like, I just cannot go on like that. I just want to be home. I just want to spend weekends home. Funny enough, I spent 2 years traveling like crazy. So when pandemic happened, silver lining for me, I spent a year at home. So I was like, finally, I can stay with my husband, enjoy the quality time, walk around, and not fly all the time everywhere. And so that was cool. But as a learning from what we experienced in the Netherlands, we realized that when you move in a temporary housing for 90 days, it's almost like you move twice because you first kind of build some stuff in the first place, and then you have to move it all. Like it's a hustle. It's much better to spend like 2 weeks and then move directly to the permanent housing. So yeah, we are not going to have any stuff. Basically, we're going to have like 2 suitcases and that's it, just with the clothes and stuff. And then hopefully we'll find the permanent housing. What I realized today is that in Paris, they're now doing the virtual tours through WhatsApp or something. So you're calling in and they're showing you apartments and you're like, okay, this is cool, this is not. I cannot imagine how you can rent a house for that, but that's probably what they're doing because of the COVID. So we shall see. That's going to be fun.
Sofya mentioned boxes and unpacking, and there was some idea that came to me and that I wanted to share for quite some time. I guess some of the customers of iBookBinding saw that usually the packaging I send larger stuff in. I mean, the cardboard boxes are used, and this is sort of I don't know. I'm a bit proud of it or something. That's I haven't bought a single cardboard box for packaging in these 3 years. So I always reuse the packaging I've got from I don't know, ordering materials or something like that. And I sort of like this idea of reusing the packaging, because why should you buy more cardboard when you can use cardboard that you already have? And with the boxes that we've got after we moved, the moving boxes, it's 3 years has passed, and the last of the boxes that were used for moving our stuff, I used only months ago.
3 years time.
Yeah, and now it's like we have twice as much, or maybe 3 times as much stuff. So there will be much more boxes. Well, there are.
Well, you also sell a few times more.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm just trying to calculate how much time it will take for me to use up all these new boxes I get.
The only thing which I'm glad about is that we got more stuff.
Yeah.
We got more stuff, which is your stuff, but not my stuff. Yeah. So you can unpack that, and I'm not gonna be bothered by that. I'm gonna preserve our bedroom, and that's it. Yeah, but it's very funny. Also, we were discussing how we need to all of the products which we found in the Netherlands and which we grew to love, comparing to Russia, and it was not easy. Like what cheese we like, what ham we like, what type of products and groceries we enjoy. And there's now we need to do all of that again for France because they probably have different products and different specifics. But we're going to learn French, which is exciting.
Yeah, speaking of French, you both will have to learn French. This time there's no chance. You're probably your vocabulary in Dutch is probably on the level 2 coffees and 1 potato. My father is an engineer. We have a cat.
Ja, ik ben Stepan. Ik woon in Leiden, and some stuff like that. Well, I can definitely read some simple stuff, and I can sort of read some books dedicated to book arts and bookbinding because I know the topic and it's much easier to understand what's written in there. But of course, sometimes you can understand even 80% of the of what's written in the book, and then these 20% are the most important, and everything turns from head to toes or something like that. So
it's the same for me with German. I can sort of understand what art history text is about, but I can't read the recipe. I can't ask directions.
Yeah, so when Dutch customers write to me in Dutch, I usually can understand what they are writing to me, but I cannot reply to them because it's just all the words flow away at the moment I start to try, writing something, and same things happens too when you're trying to speak, and it's really hard in the Netherlands because everybody speaks English.
And I mean, you don't even live in Amsterdam. You live in Leiden. I mean, again, it's a tourist town. Okay, it's a university town, but still, you can live without any language at all.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I tried to learn Dutch because when some of the experts which I met in Russia never had the effort to learn Russian, and I was like, that's very disrespectful to the country. You spend 3 years here and you don't learn Russian, even the basic things. That's kind of offensive. So I was like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to respect the country. I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to try my best. So we started learning Dutch, and I was very motivated. I was like, yeah, I want to do this. It's interesting. I like to challenge myself in certain ways. And then I tried to speak. And the thing is that the Dutch people are so nice that the moment they see that you struggle even a little bit, they switch to English immediately. Immediately. They are not even giving you space to try to build your phrase. And then at some point I got completely discouraged. I was like, there's no space for me to practice because first of all, it's not needed at all because they all speak perfect English. Even to the level, I think in 3 years in the Netherlands, I met 2 or 3 people who didn't speak English. All the rest, at least in the intermediate or high intermediate level, fantastic. I also think that they appreciate the fact, they think that the Dutch is very complex language, which I don't necessarily think so. But it's complex enough not to be easy to pick up in 2 seconds. And considering that it's a relatively small language in terms of the amount of people who speaks it, so that they try their best to use English. And also, which is interesting comparing to Russia, for example, they have the majority of the media sources being in English, not being dubbed in Dutch. So they watch movies and TV shows and things like this without Dutch dubbing.
But with subtitles, I see.
With subtitles, yeah. But they all learn English from very young age, which is very, very impressive. And therefore you can get around super easily. And when you call whatever organization or place, the first question which you ask, do you speak English? And they all do. Like, it's never, like, now I've been terrified. I called yesterday a French bank, and I was like, how am I gonna ask them to speak to me in English? The first person said that he is not speaking well, even though he was speaking well. He said he's not speaking English well. So he asked me if he can reroute me to another person. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Then they routed me. And the second person, I think, spoke worse than the first one in English. But they were super nice and they helped me. So I appreciate that as well. But I think in France specifically, the kind of attitude towards people who don't want to learn French is not great. And I appreciate that. I understand that. It's a respectful thing to do when you move to the country to learn the language, and I will make every effort to do so.
Or at least to try to.
Yeah.
You do wait, Sonia, you do know it's a trap. I mean, French people, from my personal experience, I don't want to generalize, they don't only hate it when you don't speak French.
But when you do it well.
They hate it even more when you make mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, it's a bit of a stereotype. They appreciate the effort, of course. They're going to correct you. That's also true, which is sometimes very discouraging, to say the least. But I think they're nice people as well. They're just a bit more harsh on the outside, almost as Russians are.
Unlike Russians who will compliment you and then will immediately start teaching you profanities.
The thing is, yes, so my job isn't requiring French because it's more of a regional job, so I can speak in English, during work hours, though I hope to be back in the office at some point in 2021. And then specifics of French office is that everybody speaks French and not English there. So all the communications and everything, like for example, in our Russian office, there was always double communication, Russian and English, because we had a lot of expats living there and we needed to accommodate them. In French office, the idea is if you're living in France, you need to speak French. Like you need to catch up. Even if you don't, then you need to figure this out. I know the guy who moved there as a marketing director, leading the team. He's Italian, and he was like, I didn't have a chance to not learn French because in any meeting they switch to French immediately. They're not keeping in English. So he's Italian, so it was easier for him, but he picked up the majority of the language in like 3 to 4 months, which is very impressive. But now he speaks fluently French, so the problem solved itself. But it's definitely a challenge, but I'm very much looking forward to it because I think in France, unlike in the Netherlands, you're very motivated to do so, like and to learn the language and be accepted a bit more.
And Stepan, you're probably going to have a leg up because of your childhood Romanian. Is there still any of it surviving?
Well, yeah, it's really strange because I haven't really spoken Romanian at length since I was 3 years old or something. But it was my first language. But I was really small kid when I spoke Romanian. But somehow when I come to the country and if I spend there, I don't know, a week, or for example, when I go to mountains and spend 3 days without any connection to Russian, Russian language and my mother and my grandmother who speak Russian, it suddenly starts to come back and comes back pretty fast. For example, somebody asks me how to go to this mountain or something, and I understand that phrases come to mind like magic, and it's really strange feeling. It's a great feeling, but I don't know how it works. But yeah, the brain works interestingly. So yeah, ways. I hope it will help a bit, and I definitely we already started to do some exercises with Duolingo and stuff, and I definitely see lots of similar things there, and it helps to all these parallel things. They help to faster grasp the understanding of the language.
Stefan is selling himself short because usually when we like fly with Air France, he understands what they're saying when they speak in French. He can read the menus in the restaurants. He can understand the newspapers and stuff. And I'm like, how do you do that? You don't speak French. And he's like, here's the roots are similar and the structure, I understand that. Like, for me, it looks like Chinese. I have no idea what's written there. And he's like, no, I can understand here and there. So he obviously have an advantage versus me. And I'm completely oblivious to anything.
But you have a different advantage. You will have lots of French colleagues, and hopefully at some moment you will return to office and will have, more practice.
I hope that they're nice enough to speak English to me initially, at least. But yeah, I hope to be surrounded by French all the time, and therefore I hope to pick up, at least to separate the words from each other and understand what they're saying on the basic level. And I used to think about myself that I'm not a language person, that I cannot speak fluently any of the languages except for Russian, which is funny because now I quite often being told that, oh, you're so lucky that you're fluent in English. I was like, I'm not lucky. It took literally 14 years to master. But it took a while for me to get over the barrier and all of that. So, and I hate this first months of learning the language because you kind of learn the words, you kind of know the phrases, but then the moment the first dialogue you have, you're like, and then you're almost like blubbering fish. So I cannot wait till we get to the level where I can have conversations with French people and understand what they're saying and not be lost. But it will take some time.
And apart from Russian and English, do you have any languages behind your belt? I remember something about basic Hebrew, but
it was a thing. I was learning Hebrew at some point because maybe at some point I thought that we will move to Israel or something, but also just to be closer to my roots. I did the first level, and my teacher was saying that I'm doing it very well. So I'm picking up very quickly and I understand the basics very well. Though I was suffering from such a lack of motivation to progress further because all of my friends from Israel, they speak English or Russian or whatever language there is. And I didn't really need it for work or for anything else. It was just more my curiosity, but it required quite significant time commitment to progress. And I was like, that's not gonna work out with the amount of time I spent working. I cannot put the language on top, which I don't need for work or for any type of situation except for visiting Israel, which, by the way, I haven't been there for 6 years, so it's not the most practical thing to learn. It's a funny story. So when I was 17, I decided that my problem with languages maybe is not a language problem, but my problem with English specifically. And I was like, I'm gonna go and try to learn German because German is a structural language. I love math. I understand the structure. I can follow the rules. Maybe it will be better. So I went to the Goethe Institute in Moscow. And I was like, I want the most basic level, A1, from the scratch, from the alphabet, I want to learn. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. They gave me the questionnaire, I filled the questionnaire, answered that I never, ever in my life learned German. So it is what it is. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And then I started lessons and I kind of started picking up on the fact that everybody in my group kind of knows some German. And we started not from alphabet, but from like deep immersion into let's talk about the news in German. And I'm like, something is going wrong here. But I was young and I didn't know at the time how to raise my voice. And it's like, I told them that I have no proficiency in German. So obviously they put me in the needed group. And now it's just the immersive type of situation when I need to figure out what's going on, learn the language as you go, like all of this type of fancy techniques. So it took me, I think, 5 lessons to come to the administration. It's like, I feel like there are like trains ahead of me, like that I cannot keep up at all. Because in the second and the third lessons, they're like, you need to prepare the topic of the news, which we're going to talk about. And it's like, what do you mean talk about? I cannot even say hi to Sofya. Like I'm so not there. And they were like, oh yeah, it's an A2 group. Like it's the people who learn German at some point in time and they have some basics and they need to just refresh it and then move on. And it's like, what am I doing there? It's like, oh, probably there was no spaces in A1, so we put you in A2 and you can use this as an opportunity to jumpstart your language and pick up and da-da-da. And I was like, no, just no. And they moved me to A1, which was a great thing to do. But at the time, they already were far ahead from the beginning. And I was like, I'm lost. So the whole experience was horrible because I felt completely inadequate the whole time. I could not speak, I could not do anything. And what I decided, that it's my problem, that's a language problem, that the German, English, whatever it is, not going to work out. And at the time, it was, I think it was the first year of university, I decided that I will never, ever, ever use languages in my job. I will only work in Russian. I will work in a Russian company. I will avoid English at all costs. And that's my path. And at fourth year in university, I kind of figured out that it's kind of limiting my opportunities to do what I want to do. And I didn't even know at the time what I want to do. But I was like, that's probably not it. Like, I need to expand my horizons a bit. And also, I was ashamed all the time. I was like, I don't speak English and I cannot. My problem was I had a very nice vocabulary and I could read, but I could not speak and I could not understand what people were saying. Like, I could not recognize the words and understand what's like. And we've been taught British English my whole life in school, and the like Queen type of accent. And I could not pick it up. Like, I could not understand anything. So it took a while for me to figure out what I need to do in order to make sense out of this. And what we were doing is we were watching Desperate Housewives seasons after seasons because it was the most simple English there is. We were first watching it with Russian subtitles, then with English subtitles, then without subtitles. Then we watched some other shows, and for a year, I was doing that. And I was like, now finally, I feel like I can understand American English. So I probably should go to the US and try to break through my language barrier. What was funny, though, I went to Boston and I lived in a host family. And the host mother was talking to me in the first day, and she's like, you have a pretty nice language level. And I was like, absolutely not. You're delusional. That's not happening. And she's like, no. When you're going to pass the test in the school, you're going to be 6 out of 9. I was like, no. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm 3 or 4. She's like, no, trust me. I see a lot of students every year and like every month. You're going to be 6 out of 9. I passed the test. I was 6 out of 9, which was higher intermediate level. And that's a joke. That doesn't make any sense. But then I was kind of, as I was there for a month, and I was like, I need to get the most out of it. It costs a lot of money, and I'm living alone because Stefan was in Moscow at the time. And I was like, I need to do something. So I started speaking. And even though it was all in present simple and all in the wrong ways, and it was horrible, I was talking. And by the end of the month, I was like, I could not shut up. As you can see, I'm a very talkative person. So after that, I was like, oh, you see, I can speak. Like, I can say something and I can explain to people from, I don't know, Venezuela or Italy something about myself. So that's great. And then I came back and started watching much more TV shows because I always need a reason to watch TV shows and say that it's for educational purposes. And then since then I didn't avoid the company with English. Though in the beginning it was very terrifying to put I was in a research agency and I needed to put together the reports in English, and it's like, how I'm gonna do it? What if I'm making mistakes? Spoiler alert, everybody makes mistakes, so it's not a big deal. Especially when you're presenting it to a Russian client who kind of speaks English to you just because they're in an international company. But now it's not a problem. But now it's French, so we need to start watching French TV shows and trying to figure out French.
I'm sure there is a French version of Desperate Housewives.
Hope so. I hope so.
I'm really waiting for the moment when I will be able to read Jules Verne in French, because he definitely was one of my favorite authors in my childhood, and we had this blue collection of his works in the Soviet edition, and I read it like from the first volume to the last volume 4 or 5 times. So yeah, I hope.
What about Three Musketeers?
Well, I read it many times as well, but I'm not sure I want to return to Dumas.
Notre Dame de Paris.
Well, yeah. French literature is great literature. There are so many great authors and so many great books. So there is definitely, things to choose from, and modern French culture is also very, very impressive. So there is a lot of things to see there, to read there, to listen to. Well, we'll see when we achieve this level of understanding of and comprehension of language that will allow us to to enjoy all of this.
I personally have always been wondering how good were Pushkin or Tolstoy in their French prose. I mean, those pages and pages of French in War and Peace, are they any good?
Good question. I also wonder how they translate it in French. Like when you read War and Peace in French, do they translate it to, I don't know, German or something, like to kind of make it the plural of like two different languages or something? I was like, how did they do that? Also, fun fact. So I was talking to my Dutch teacher at the time, who is a great guy. And he was telling me that he was reading Crime and Punishment. And he was like, the problem with Russian names specifically is that we use a lot of diminutive short versions, right? So the name Anastasia would be Nastinka and Nastichka and Anastasia Petrovna and Nastyusha and whatever it is. And he was like, I read 60 pages before I understood that, I don't know, Sonichka and Sofya and all of this is the same character. Like I thought that it's all different people because they're all referring to them in different ways. And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about that, because apparently they're like the whole culture around shortening names and changing names in such a, so usually like the Richard is Dick or like Philip is Phil, right? So it's a very common way of shortening it.
It's funny that all three of us, we have our long versions of names and short versions of names. In English, they have exactly the same length.
Yeah.
So I'm Stepan and Stepa, and in English transliteration it will be the same amount of letters, yeah. So it would be shorter. But in Russian, it's shorter. Stepa is shorter than Stepan. You're Sofya and Sonia. In English, it will be all the same, but in Russian, Pavel is Pavel or Pasha. It's also the same in English translation, but Pasha is shorter in Russian than Pavel. So it's
my friend had a website, scientific website, and he had to clarify in the list of his publications that Alyosha is indeed considered the shorter form of Alexei. Which it definitely isn't when you write it down in English.
So when I was first moving outside of Russia, where it was obvious that I'm Sonia, like nobody doubted that ever. In Russia, it's the most common shortening of Sofya is Sonia. So I didn't expect any problems with that. I was like, of course, like every name has some short version or something. And then I was introduced to the team, which was very multinational. There were French people, there were English people, there were like different types of people. And so my boss, who was my boss in Russia as well, introduced me as Sofya Chizhova. So it was the proper name. And then throughout the 2 years team meeting, as he knew me as Sonia, obviously from Russia, he referred to me Sonia multiple times. And by the end of the meeting, my colleagues, bless their hearts, was messaging my other colleagues who are Russians saying like, do we have two people doing the same job, like Sofya and Sonia? Because apparently in the US and Europe, everywhere, it's two different names, like completely different names. They are not short versions of each other. They're completely different. And they're like, and then my friend was like, yeah, Sonia is a short version of Sofya. And I was like, and they were saying it in English, obviously. And I was like, yeah, but it's the same amount of letters. And she's like, trust me, in Russian, it's 4 and 5. It's like, it still doesn't sound short. And I was like, yeah, but Sofya is their official and full name, and you would not refer like this to the person outside of like, I don't know, school or medical institution or something like this. And like on a casual basis, you would always call the person Sonia because that's a normal way of shortening the name. And it's like, yeah, we still don't get it. And then they didn't understand it to the full extent. And they thought that I personally prefer to be called not by my name, but by other name. So they told all of my colleagues in R&D and everywhere, it's like, you never should refer to her as Sofya. You need to refer to her as Sonia. And I didn't even know that this is happening. I was like, I'm all fine. And I have a call with R&D colleagues who are like the most respectful British people. And then they're like, oh, Sofya. And I was like, so sorry, Sonia. And I'm like, you should not be sorry. That's my name. And they're like, do you have two names? I was like, it's not two names. It's a short version of the full name. It was like, but it's not short. I was like, I cannot explain it again.
Well, the other thing with your name is that you're not Sofia, but you're Sofya. So it's also a bit of a difference. Yeah.
I'm all over it. I'm like, call me whatever. I don't care one bit. In France, it may be Sophie or something like this. And then we shall see when we get in this out. But every time I moved, so the last role, I told everybody that I'm Sofya. I never introduced myself as Sonia. But then there was a couple of people who knew me from my past life, and they started calling me Sonia. And everybody's like, why do some people call you Sonia and some people call you Sofya? I was like, that's a long story. I'm not going to get into it. But then my new boss in the French company, he knows me very well as Sonia. So he's now confusing everybody to like how I should be calling. Anyway, it's gonna be all fine. But the fun thing, I was like, it can be Sonichka or Sonishka or Sonchik or Sonyachik. There's like 25 variations of the name, all of them which are shorter and like diminutive type of stuff. You'll never will be able to figure it out unless you're Russian. Like it's a customs of the country which everybody knows and everybody understands if you're Russian, but if you're not, that's a problem. But I never thought about application of this problem to the literature, because apparently when they translate the names, they're not making them back to the original name, they're preserving the form.
And Stepan, you're definitely becoming Stefan from now on.
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay with any, I guess, versions of my name, and some people try to to pronounce it correctly, Stepan. Others try or not try. I sometimes some of the customers, for example, write to me like Stefan, and then they send a message. Oh, sorry, I misspelled your name, and it's not a real problem for me. And I know that some people are, for example, there are Stefan, Steven, Stefan in different letters, and some people really prefer to be called in a particular way, and that's their absolute right. But in Romania, I'm Stefan. In Russia, I'm Stepan. I was baptized at some moment in my childhood, and I'm Stefan in Russian Christian tradition. So there are so many versions already, and I'm okay with any of them. I like all of them. So anything would work for me. I wanted to add some more technical details about our move, and
for those who got here and was patient.
I will post some timestamps under the video, so hopefully some of the people will decide to check them and maybe skip or maybe watch through. I don't know. But maybe I will edit this part in the beginning. We'll see how it goes. But I need to get more wine first.
So anyway, Sonia, I wanted to ask you this. What did you think when he first started bookbinding? And when did you realize that this hobby was not going away?
It's an interesting question. I knew that he has a background in bookbinding from early days. He never pursued it in any significant way. And then I remember that it was 2015. He was in US, right? And studying in the bookbinding school. When he messaged me and said, oh, I want to buy this website, which is called iBookBinding.com. And I'm like, buy the website? What does it even mean? And he was like, yeah, it's the thing. The guy who was leading it, he's selling it. And it's like around this much. And I'm like, this much? That's much. And he's like, yeah, but this is once in a lifetime opportunity. It's already kind of built up in a way. There's already a robust base of the followers. They have Facebook page, which was very hot at the time. And then he showed me some stats saying like, oh, it's gonna sell this and gonna be like this type of income and stuff like this. I looked for it and I was like, that's not gonna be it. Like, it's not gonna work. Like, I work in marketing. I know how to build a case that something should be working well. It's not gonna be. And I'm like, that doesn't make much sense. But I was like, are you passionate about it? Because he was just out of 1 month of being on a course in the US for specifically bookbinding, and I knew that it was passion of his. And
I should add that I've been teaching bookbinding for some time already,
yeah.
And that was the reason why I decided to go to United States to the American Academy of Bookbinding to study bookbinding, because I wanted to be sure that the things that I'm teaching, I know what I'm teaching, and to have this confidence, that I'm not teaching the wrong stuff. So yeah, I had some connection to bookbinding before we decided to buy bookbinding, or before I persuaded you that we have to buy it.
But let's be honest, of course he had this hobby and all of this, but he's a person of many, many talents. So he has a lot of passion projects at any time. So it was just one of them. And I was like, I'm not sure how big it is. And also it's such an obscure thing to do that at the time, and it was 6 years ago, it was like, yeah, that's one of the things he's doing. I'm not sure this is going to be a big thing. But then when he was asking for this significant investment, which we took a big hit on, and at the time I was not that high up in the corporate world and I didn't have that much income. So
and I was working at school.
Yeah, so it was a big investment with a bit of a lottery feel into it. It's like the only thing which I thought about is that I knew that he was not the only one who wanted to buy it. So I was like, it's something, we can resell it if it doesn't go as planned. But at the same time, I was like, it's not like a car which will go cheaper with time. This thing is not supposed to get cheaper because it's kind of it's only going to get better. So I'm like, we can try. That's not the worst thing to happen. Even though when I was talking to my friends and I was like, so my husband is buying a blog, and everybody was like, what? And I was like, blog about bookbinding, and people were like, you're just insane. But I was all for it. Like the moment we decided to do that, I was like, okay, let's give it the best shot and see how it goes. And it took us 3 more years, right? That you were working on your day job, and then you did it as a hobby. You started teaching more, and started doing the tools and the things, but it was still a side hustle while we were in Russia. But then when we moved out of Russia because of my job, Stefan was like, I want to give it a serious shot, like making it a full-time thing, which was not easy to do from the beginning because it needed a lot of establishing the grounds. Even though the website was great and the Etsy shop was great, it needed some proper ecosystem around it, and the fantastic platform which he's building still, and which is surrounded by many, many things of different sort, like podcast and the store and the Instagram and Facebook and all of the things. At the time, they were not as prominent and not as obvious as a revenue streams, which he wanted to make them to be. But at the time, I was like, we are full blast serious about that. This is the fantastic idea, because in the end of the day, if it didn't work out, then oh well. If it would work out, it's like, that's perfect, because I'm moving a lot for my job. And for any spouse in this situation, it's super hard to every time find a new job, especially if it's corporate world as well. It's a lot of interdependency in terms of the moving, and none of the employers like that, right? So I was like, if you're going to have your own thing, which will work pretty much from wherever you are, that would be ideal. So I was all for it to work out. I was like, I want this to succeed, because then it's going to mean that he's going to have a thing he's passionate about and he can pursue from any place. And then I'm going to have a thing which I'm passionate about, which is my career. And it's a win-win for both of us. And it's kind of a perfect condition. But what's funny is that in the beginning, people were like, what your husband is doing for a living? He's like, he's a bookbinder. And people like, what? He's like, he's doing tools for bookbinding. I'm like, what? And like, you will figure this out. It's like, it's all good. So I think I understood that it's serious in 2015 when he asked me to buy this website. And I'm like, he better be serious about that, because we're investing a lot of money into it. So it should work out. But it was not immediate. So we didn't, I think it took some years to kind of make money back from the purchase.
It took more than 4 years to return the money that we paid for the website.
So it was a huge investment, but I don't regret it even a slight bit, because also I have to admit, Stepan is a person of many passions, ideas and projects. But this one is the first time I see him consistently building something super sustainably for many years, being super passionate about, not being tired of this, because he finds all the different ways to make it fun and interesting for himself. And when I saw that, I was like, all for it. That's fantastic. That's what you should do. And also, truth be told, I'm completely impressed by his genius in terms of merging the very humanitarian skills and very craft and art with the engineering and math, and making it innovative and smart, and merge the two, which I think is a very unique combination of skills, which not many people have, because there are a lot of artsmen and craftsmen, and there are a lot of engineers, but there's not many people in between. And I think it's a fantastic space to be well-versed in both. And it gives such a unique vision on the things, and innovating bookbinding, which is, I think, is a spectacular thing to do. And I honestly earn my money by doing PowerPoint slides. So I'm not procuring any of the important things to the world, and I'm not creating things myself. So I'm always very proud that Stepan does that, and that he is making lives of people better. Especially, I'm so proud every time on Instagram somebody's mentioning the tools and saying how much easier it makes their work, and how better they are in what they're doing, and quicker and more efficient and all of that. That's fantastic. That's the purpose to have, is to make the life of people better and easier, and all of that. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you.
Could you perhaps elaborate on your Instagram presence? What does it take? I mean, Stepan mentioned more than once that perhaps the biggest marketing tool for you nowadays is the amount of time you put into your Instagram presence. How long did it take to work it up to this level, and how much work do you have to put into it, say, every week, because the algorithm doesn't like pauses and stuff?
Yeah. So I think when we started, so initially Stepan has a huge presence on Facebook, and it was the main selling point of this whole blog thing. And so Stepan was like, yeah, sure, Facebook, we need to go Facebook. The whole thing is about Facebook. Facebook algorithm is not kind to group posts. It's not kind to any type of content which doesn't get that much of engagement immediately. And therefore, even though our following on Facebook is huge, considering, it's not growing that much, and it's not that engaged to what we're posting. So it has a certain purpose for, like, if you want to share links or something, people are more eager to go click on the link in Facebook than in Instagram, just because it's easier to do. You make one click, while in Instagram you need to go, oh, please go to the bio and click the link, and nobody does that. So this is the one thing. But Instagram, I was very annoying about it. I was like, you have to grow your Instagram. That's the thing. This is the main marketing tool. Just trust me. Let's do that. And he was like, I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't have that much content, I'm not sure how to do it, I don't want to create the photos, all of that. So he was very resistant to the idea initially. And for me, it was a fun project, because I have my own Instagram of like 500 followers, just my friends. So that's not their reach platform per se. I'm not an influencer of any kind. So I was like, it's a fun project to see how much we can grow without significant investment into that, because we were not up for like paying promotions and stuff like this all the time, or buying followers, for sure not. So what was good is that immediately when you register the Instagram, it notifies your Facebook friends, like it links it to Instagram saying, oh, this account you follow on Facebook, you can follow on Instagram as well. So I think first thousands of people we got very easily, and they got just from notifying things like this. But then after that, it took some time to figure out what was, so there are two types of things which I see important. One type of thing is a content which your existing followers appreciate a lot, and they're clicking and liking. And there are a type of content which would go far in terms of the reaching people who are not yet following you, but will be interested enough to click on your profile and see what you're doing and follow you. So some of the posts perform really well, and we always expect them to perform really well within the engaged audience, but some of them we expect to reach further. And once we understood the model and what type of content works for what group and how you need to kind of mix it together in order to maximize the reach, but at the same time ensure engagement, it started to be much easier. I think the biggest piece, which maybe Stepan is not saying that much, is trying to figure out what content to post and like gather the content to post. And it's always should have a certain point of view on things. It's not just reposting stuff. It's like either it's a part of interview, or if it's something we want to highlight some projects of some fellow bookbinders, or want to talk about our tools, or want to talk about book history or something, to keep the platform not only self-centered, to not make a platform only reposting stuff and being very generic and very secondary to what the main content is, but being very educational and inspirational for people, and sharing and uplifting the community, and giving the platform to people. And what I especially love to see now is that we have enough following to kind of uplift people in terms of like, if we share the project and mentioning the person gets a boost of followers immediately, because people are very interested and they go and follow. Which is the nicest thing to see, because you kind of share the love to people. And then what is interesting about the algorithm, if you post consistently and if the Instagram sees that your engagement is nice enough, it boosts your posts even without paid promotions. It just shows it to more people. It puts them on Explore page. And then I truly believe that our account now is growing easier than many other smaller accounts, just because we already have this kind of critical mass of interested people who are boosting our engagement all the time. So now it's from the point of editing photos and stuff like this, it takes me very little time. That's not too much. And I like edit photos and do things like that. Content plan of like how we're going to do that. Stepan is not the biggest fan of like planning things in advance. He wants to be a bit more going with the flow and spontaneous and how I feel today, which ends up sometimes being like, oh, it's midnight, we haven't posted anything on Instagram, should we post something? No, we probably should go to bed. So it just takes time to figure out what we need to post and why, and then write the description and stuff like this. So I don't think we spend that much time on posting itself, but I'm pretty sure Stepan spent some time on researching stuff to post, which I'm not a part of.
I guess still it takes an hour per day combined between two of us.
Yes.
So it's not like it's no time. It still takes some time, and there are only 24 hours per day, and I have to do a lot of other things during my work day, and Sofya also has a lot of job to do. So it's
the one thing which I want to say is that the maybe even more sufficient part of the day which we allocate is to replying to comments, answering DMs, reading the stories, sharing the stories, and doing the things which are more of a reactive than proactive in reacting to the community and making sure that we not ignoring any mentions, we're not ignoring people DMing and asking questions. We are highlighting things which we want to highlight, and we use the content which people create for us for our favor as well. That's more ongoing.
With their permission, and that's very important.
We never
to me.
exploit stuff.
And I'm quite, I don't know, not picky, but meticulous about being sure that I have permission to use photos or any other sort of content, because I really don't like the situation with copyright. And this is something we plan to discuss with Pavel at some point, to invite some person who knows about copyrights and how they work, because for some bookbinders, it's an important topic. Can you use this or that image on your binding or something like that? Can you use this photo? Can you reproduce this photo? What are the limitations? What is fair use? What is so? I prefer to be very clear and clean with all the use of material created by other people. So I always ask permission to share the photo, and I think it's important to do it this way. Well, there are different approaches, and I guess most of them are valid, but this is the way I prefer to do things. And well, Yeah.
And speaking of things that other people created for you, what is that book standing next to you, Sonia?
Oh, I think Stefan should tell. So one time, Stefan was at the fair, I would say, selling stuff, and he came
Here in
back with this.
Leiden, yeah, there is
Yeah,
this
in
book
the St. Petersburg, right?
book arts fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and he came back with this book, which I think is a completely fascinating project. So it's a book with the cut off things to create the iBookBinding logo, which some kind soul or many souls, because it was a group project from what I remember, did for Stefan just to show the like token of appreciation for the work he's doing. I think you can highlight who it was and how they did that. But I was so thoroughly impressed that I now keep it on my desk at the workspace.
Well, I unfortunately I don't know the name of the person who did this with their own hands. I know from whom it came to me, and it's a fellow colleague from Germany. I guess we can link their project's website in the description, and they have some classes, and that's from where this object book object was sourced from where it came. And yeah, I was so impressed, because it's so much work to do this, and you need to calculate every page, to cut it and then fold it, and then it's and it's hundreds
so
of
much
pages.
precision.
So yeah, that's
I'm also
impressive.
fascinated in what came out of this logo. You remember it was done by a student years and years and years ago, and now it's on cups. It's on T-shirts. I have a face mask with this logo, and now it's on a piece of craft, piece of art.
I think I have it some over here.
Of course, it's pink.
The logo is pretty impressive, and many people who see it the first time, they say, well, yeah, absolutely, it's stitching on the spine of books, on different types of books. So it was an interesting process to see how it was created, and to sort of try to tweak it a bit in this collaboration. Pavel was a part of this process, and took a part in this process. And
yeah, it was also fascinating to see how it's done from that side, because they explained how they work, that they wanted a modular logo so that you could repeat those stitches as many times as you like, which was a big thing. What was it, like 5 years ago? And I think it's a great success.
Yeah, I like how it embodies the bookbinding, the books, the like. At the time, I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's a graphic logo. It's super nice. We can use it. But with time, it kind of grew into something bigger, and being the representative symbol of many, many things. And I really, really like it. And also, it's very easily transferable to the tools which Stefan is doing, which is also very nice branding. Because if it would be complex, modular thing, that would be much, much more complex to use for printing.
Okay, perhaps one more question. Stepan, what are your wildest plans for the next 3 years? So the last 3 years in Holland were quite a ride. What next?
Well, I probably will start with not as wild plans for the closer future, for the upcoming month, because I have a lot of ideas, and I sort of was really upset in the past few months that I haven't really worked on many designs and many updates of the tools, or some new tools in the past months, because I was quite busy since the beginning of lockdowns, and I'm quite lucky in this way, because I guess people were spending more time home, and they wanted some more things for their hobbies. So it helped me to survive this year as well. But The other side of having a lot of work to do was that I didn't have any time for for innovation or something like that, for designing new things. So first, I have some ideas of new tools, and one of my pet projects was to create a set of tools for creating mini books and miniature books. Yeah, and I have some. I've experimented already with some designs, but it needs more fine tuning. So this is one of the things I want to do. There are some other ideas that I want to try. Some of them are already exist in the market, and I have maybe some thoughts how to improve existing tools. Other things I haven't seen before. So I hope when our followers will see them, they will be quite happy and interested. But on the other hand, I have some things I want to change in how iBookBinding works. The amount of orders grew quite a lot in the past past 12 months. And one of the things that I don't like about how the things are at the moment is that I still make tools with plastic, and it's not really renewable material. And I want to make my production much cleaner. It's sort of it's not a one-use plastic, so I'm not. I think my conscience is quite clean in this way. Quite okay with that. That's people use these tools for years, and I know it for sure. But still, when you're making, when you're 3D printing tools, when you're prototyping, you have a lot of leftover material. And one of the first things I want to do when we move to France is to get some new tools to recycle all this leftover plastic, and maybe even some more.
So, it's important to mention that it's a bio-based plastic, right?
Sorry?
It's important to mention that it's bio-based plastic.
Yeah, I use PLA, and it's corn-based plastic. Some people say that it's biodegradable, but it's not, truly biodegradable. It is biodegradable when used under certain conditions with additional agents. So it's not like you throw it away and it degrades in a couple of years. That's not true. It's more biodegradable than some other sorts of plastic. So I guess it will take not 400 years for it to degrade, but 100, but still it's a long time. So I want to make my production as clean as it's possible in terms of waste material. As I told before, I try to use all the packaging I get, and all the cardboard materials that I get, I reuse and use it for packaging. I want to do same for all the plastic materials I have. So it will.
And what about 3D printing your own packaging? Is that project still alive?
Well, yeah, I had some experiments with using paper pulp in 3D printing, and I need more time to experiment with it, because in the end I could produce some things for packaging, but it was too finicky and not stable enough, and I need to improve the fluidity of this paper pulp paste that is needed to create these objects from paper. But yeah, that's in the plans as well. We'll see when it happens, but I'm not sure about dates yet.
So basically you have lots of plans, but you don't have enough time. What are you planning to do about it?
That's the other thing that just has to happen. I need to get at least one employee when we move to France, after I have a workshop. And at first I plan to find a person who will help me with packing the orders and sorting some stuff, not really doing any work related to designing or 3D printing or something like that. But well, packaging at the moment takes from 2 to 6 hours per day. So it's quite a lot. And some days I can work 12 hours, and at the end of the day, I feel that I haven't done enough. So yeah, the business grows, and it's great. And it's not only the business, it's just the project in its totality, you know, because there is I really hope to see iBookBinding as educational project that pays for itself. Of course, I want to have some income, and it's great to feel that you are having some input in your family budget. But still, I really have this sort of idealistic view that we need to bring knowledge to the audience, to bring more people to bookbinding, to share stories of different bookish people. And this was one of the reasons I decided to create iBookBinding podcast last year, and to invite Pavel to be a co-host. So, well, we'll see how it goes. It takes time, and it definitely without some help, without an employee, it wouldn't be possible to move forward, because at the moment I feel that I'm almost at the limit of my human abilities to process everything we do with iBookBinding project.
But to say on top of that, after 6 hours of packing, the special pleasure we have is to, in our evening walk, which we have usually every day, we put together all of the packages and everything, go to the mailbox, and I put them on. This is the only part which I'm taking in packaging. I'm sending them in because in the Netherlands they have fun orange mailbox which you need to put it in the thing, and it's a great end of the day because the Stefan worked the whole day. He created 25 packages. We're sending them in, and I especially like the part with mailbox, not with people when you need to register the packaging and like track and all of this stuff that I don't like, but the pure action of like putting it in and like kind of sending it away, very satisfaction driven. It's a fantastic thing to do in the evening. So it's our
especially a strange satisfying feeling when you fill up the mailbox and there is no place left for anything else.
So it's like when he has a lot of small packages with like corner cutting jigs or something like this, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 30. It's like, and the mailbox is full. We're like, okay, you did the thing. You can take a rest for the rest of the day, which is not a lot. And I have to tell you, even though I work a lot, Stefan works more. Like he spends, and he never stops for Saturdays or Sundays. Even when he says
I have a free day on Saturday, and
he's usually either editing videos or creating some new designs or thinking about the Instagram or doing some things with the orders or calculating the taxes or doing something. Like he never stops because he always has this tingling sensation that there's so much more to do, which I appreciate about my job. I also think about it a lot, even during the weekend, but I can switch off. I can like, okay, my laptop is in another room. I'm not going to open it and I'm going to enjoy watching Grey's Anatomy or something. But Stefan is always in because it's his baby, right? So he's very passionate about it, which I appreciate a lot. And obviously, the ideal would be to outsource all the parts which don't require his mega brain to think about, to clear some space for content creation. And I remember at some point he was passionate about creating the courses for bookbinding, for like, I don't know, making perfect corners or making boxes or something like this, which I thought was a spectacular idea. And I'm sure he has tons of knowledge to share with people. It just requires so much time and effort to put it together and to produce it in a very high quality level that he never got to it, but maybe he can. And I told him, like, we're moving now. You will have 3 to 4 weeks break from production of the orders. And he was obviously very concerned about this piece because you need to stop the business for a certain time. But at the same time, you can use it as an opportunity to focus on some more of a content creation part of the thing or more thinking. Because I know better than anybody when you work all the time and you spend all the time doing, there's not much time to reflect and think just because you don't have much mind space to allocate to.
I guess my biggest and wildest dream is to start creating series of workshops in different countries for children, because one of the most amazing experiences in my life was after I was already teaching bookbinding for a couple of years. I was invited to this weekly Sunday class for. It was not specifically dedicated to bookbinding. It was about book arts in general. So they were studying how to design the layouts for texts, how to design covers, how to everything. And it was a series of workshops for kids starting with age of 7 and up to 14 or 15. And I was invited to feel this part of physical bookmaking, bookbinding. And I did it for a year or so, and I'm so very grateful to the people who created this initiative and who invited me, because I was so scared in the beginning, because I was like, they wouldn't listen to me, they will eat me like and don't
Like,
don't notice. And
Put sharp objects on your chair. Yeah.
and yeah, and it was so amazing. They were sort of accepting all the ideas and bookbinding styles I showed them, and they were listening and they were learning, and it was such an amazing and magical experience. So I really want to bring more of it to the world, and hopefully in Russia, but in some other countries as well. I don't know when it will happen, but that's sort of one of the goals of all this project at the moment. And at some moment we were discussing with Sofia, well, if I want to make iBookBinding fully non-for-profit, what would you say? And Sofia was, well, I work at a corporate job. I think at some point we will be able to to do that. And I still want to to earn my earn my stay. But it is definitely one of my goals to create some sort of project within iBookBinding to teach kids in the first place, maybe other people, older people as well. But we'll see how it goes. It's just my my most important dream for some time.
That sounds really nice, and that is a good place to stop, I think.
I wanted to add just a couple of things. It's a good place to stop. I just wanted to swiftly add a couple of things. That's we have some plans for iBookBinding's podcast for this year, and they are quite important. And Pavel knows about them. We really want to add two more hosts to our project, and we already have two amazing persons who agreed to join this project, or at least to try to do that, and to add French and Spanish versions of podcast to iBookBinding. We'll see how it goes. I'm not sure if it will succeed, but we will try, and we will definitely. If it wouldn't go this year, we will continue trying next year. But that's something that we plan to do.
You wanted to talk about some technical stuff as well, no? About the movie?
Yeah, I guess we discussed almost everything about it. You talked about some technical stuff related to moving, that we won't have our stuff, and I won't have our equipment for a couple of weeks. So that's one of the main reasons why I plan to stop all the activities related to iBookBinding's shop, just because I wouldn't have any equipment. Of course, I will have to register as a business in France, and it will take some time and other things. But well, yeah, the
pricing campaign.
yeah, and the prices. The prices probably will change because taxes are different in France. There are more social taxes there, I guess, than in the Netherlands, and I suppose prices will rise just a bit. But well, I hope
Ever so slightly.
Everybody will be okay with it.
And in terms of shipping, probably nothing much.
Well, shipping is almost the same, and it will still remain. It's a policy that sort of we had to follow because Etsy is so US centered platform, and they really try to make you offer free shipping to US based customers, and it's easy for a US based business. Because you just choose your region and you make shipping free for your home region. But if you are living and making things outside of the US, you have to do free shipping worldwide. So that's what we have, and that's what we will have after we move to France. So this wouldn't change. We will have free shipping for any person coming from any region, any country of the world.
What's the most exotic place you had to send your tools to? Like, I don't know, Pitcairn Islands?
Not Pitcairn, but I have a first order from Qatar recently, and yeah, that was I had some orders from Middle East countries before, but it was the first order from Qatar, and I checked just a few days ago. We sent orders to 80 countries from all continents except Antarctica, of course.
Any day now.
I don't know why, of course, because I guess some scientists from there may also be interested in bookbinding and.
I mean, after this year, you can imagine what it's like on the South Pole.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. The main country the country that I get the most orders from is still the United States, but if, for example, 3 years ago, it was something like 30 to 40% of orders came from there. Now it's 25%, and many other countries joined the crowd, and the people from other countries are now part of iBookBinding community, and I'm very impressed when I see a new country on the list, and it's it's quite amazing. I'm a bit upset that not many orders come from Russia, but I guess the financial situation is not the best.
Quite expensive
in Russia, and tools are quite expensive for many people there. Well,
there may also be paradoxically a language barrier. Your web presence is mostly in English.
Yeah, that's true.
And also shipping from the Netherlands is not the easiest to Russia.
Yeah, it takes some time. But yeah, other than that, United States, Canada, United Kingdom, there are many customers from United Kingdom. Of course, European countries get orders from Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, sometimes from Japan. Lots of orders from Australia, and some orders from New Zealand. But Australia,
these are the most expensive ones.
Australia currently is on the third place among the quantity in terms of quantity of orders. So yeah, there is a huge community of bookbinders in Australia, and that's something we really wanted to have more access to with Pavel on our podcast, and we have some plans inviting bookish people from Australia.
Can't wait, rather soon, right?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. There are some plans. They are not finalized yet, but I hope something will come through soon.
You're gonna record it in the night.
So basically, like
Yeah.
drag race, I book
Down
binding down under.
Yeah. Sort of like that. Yeah, it's sometimes it's really tough because when we record with the United States, or for example, when we had recorded a podcast with Mexico some time ago, and it's really late for Pavel. It's not as late for me because Pavel is 2 hours ahead of us, so time difference maybe 9 or 10 hours for him. And we will have some guests from Japan and other Asian countries pretty soon, and well, we will have to record in the morning our time, and it will be evening for them. So it's a bit tricky, but yeah, we find some opportunities to do that, because it's really something that's really improved our lives. I mean, my and Pavel's Pavel's and mine lives in these past months.
You have no idea how grateful I am for this. It's been a really fun ride. I really like to talk to people. And it's been everything, and clearly people like to talk to me. So it's been very enjoyable, and it's really helped me through the first wave and the second wave. And which wave are we on now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and this too will pass.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's drink to that. We were drinking through this podcast, and well, sorry. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
While you were talking about big dreams, I was drinking impatiently.
So will you read us out?
Yeah, I guess I checked the statistics on YouTube, and the quantity of viewers drops like momentarily when I start to read this stuff. But please join the crowd on Patreon, because we really need your support to bring these new versions, Spanish and French versions of our podcast to our viewers, to our community. Check the link below and see what your support on Patreon can be. Many thanks to all of you who watched through this video, or skipped through the parts and used the timestamps. Anything. It's really important for us that you are there and that you are watching, and you are a part of our community. And it's a really delightful thing to do this, to record this podcast, to meet all these people, and to do this for you. So thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you will stay with us for many months and years.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
My beloved Sofia, for joining us today, and
My pleasure.
see you next time.
Bye.